This week's episode of Panel of Amateurs is not brought to you by Audible. Audible is the #1 audiobook subscription service around. Choose from Audible's vast collection of books, newspapers, and magazines covering a wide array of genre. Whether you want mystery, action, or romance, Audible has it all. Visit audible.com today and start your 1-month free trial.
Don't forget, we're still doing our giveaway. Once we reach 100 YouTube subscribers, we'll be giving away a gift card to one lucky subscriber, just in time for the holiday season. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share our podcast.
All right, welcome to this week's exciting episode of Panel of Amateurs, where we'll be talking a little bit about horror films, our childhood costumes for Halloween, and the news regarding films and other things.
Happy Halloween, everybody, and welcome to Panel of Amateurs. All right, so Peter, in the news this week, Frank Miller, who penned The Dark Knight Returns, talked about his views of the approach of the next Batman film, which we talked about on another episode and said is starting in filming in the spring. What Miller said in an interview with Variety is that in his dream movie, he would slow the story down or go smaller. He would focus more on the mission and lose the toys. What are your thoughts?
Well, I guess, that's a good idea. I mean, James Bond is a toys guy. Batman does have a lot of toys. But I feel like, I guess it depends on what the mission is. If the mission is like in Resident Evil 4, the story of like saving the president's daughter, that becomes very like side story after you start getting into what's going on in the game. But in films, when you have a mission like saving the president's daughter, it becomes something that's pretty easy to focus on for 2 hours. But really, if you're just sitting there, if I'm watching a movie where someone's just taking care of one task and they're not doing it any kind of special way, then I might as well just read a book.
I think it really boils down to how you're a fan of Batman. If you're a fan of Batman through the films, which there are a lot of people that are,
Right.
or if you're a fan of Batman through the comics, which there are also a lot of people that have become fans that way. I think if you're a fan of the comics, you would enjoy a movie that focuses more on his detective skills. What makes Batman so much smarter than the criminals he faces? If you're a fan of the movies, you like to see the Batmobile and the new Batwing or whatever they're calling it, the Batboat, or all the gadgets and things that he has. I think with this movie, you've got a character in the villain, Deathstroke, the Terminator, who is a martial artist that kind of compares with Batman, or is
Right,
almost equal
on the same level, definitely,
to Batman.
with fighting
But,
skills.
He's not Superman. Batman doesn't need to build a tank to beat him. I'd like to see a more intellectual Batman, a Batman who has to think through the process, where the villain is not about jokes, it's not the Riddler, it's not the Joker, but it is more of a military strategist where Batman has to figure that out, and it's not so much about if he can build the best toy to beat him.
So in a film like that, would you have Batman, like, say he gets to, because every film has to have a struggle of some kind. So is there going to be a point where he's basically like in a room pacing back and forth, and we get like quick cuts where he's not sure what to do, and you see him like struggling with is it like that kind of intellectual ideal for Batman, or do you want it to be more like say Sherlock Holmes, where I don't know if you've ever watched the BBC Sherlock, but he just he just lays it out. This is how it is. This is what's happening.
And that's one of the best shows on the BBC.
Heck yeah, it is.
And I think a little bit of both, actually. You've got a villain in Deathstroke who is former military,
Right.
According to the comics, and you finally get someone in Batman, or you finally get someone who Batman matches up with, or was equal to Batman physically and potentially mentally. How can Batman, when you've got a villain who's covering all of his bases the same way that Batman would do, how do you outthink the thinker?
So, just real fast, you said that we're finally getting a villain that's matching him physically, but we had Bane who definitely matches Batman physically, at least in this iteration with the Dark Knight Rises. You know, because obviously he broke his back and destroyed him physically.
Yeah.
And he was able to come back and mentally win the battle. But when I think once you get on the same level mentally, the battle becomes more, well, like Frank Miller wants, more focused and more drawn out.
I think it would make it more of a chess match.
Yeah, definitely. I think chess or maybe Risk, you know, because Risk you still have a lot of battle, but if you move too many of your pieces in one way, then you've let yourself vulnerable. I guess it's the same with chess, though.
And
Yeah.
if the rumors are true that this is going to be a movie that's focused on Batman having to basically get from one floor of Arkham to the next and going through his rogues gallery, part of that chess match is how much energy does Batman
Right.
expend fighting off all these other criminals when he know that, you know, boss number one is
Mhm.
at the top, or he has to conserve enough energy or outthink or outlast Deathstroke, if the rumors about the plot of the movie are
Well,
true.
then if that's the plot of the story, then we have to have a lot of the gadgets then, you know, because we're gonna have floor 1 through 3. We'll say. Well, I'm imagining this is a 12-story building when I think about this, but he's gonna have to conserve energy, so he'll need gadgets. He'll need like flashbangs. He'll need batarangs. He'll need some kind of bolo, something like that.
So a big part of the focus in Batman versus Superman was Batman, his new Batmobile, his
Right,
new
the
Bat
bat
plane,
suit.
things like that. But actually, one of the better moments in the movie, even besides the fight with Batman versus Superman, which wasn't that great of a moment anyway, but one of the better moments was when Batman was saving Clark Kent's Martha in the warehouse and him fighting through the goons. So it wasn't all the cool toys at the big cool toys.
Right, it
This-
was small.
the smaller specialized
Right.
toys I'm okay with, but I do want to see a deeper, more detective focused Batman than we've seen before.
I'm on board with that.
Tell me why
Yeah.
he's the greatest detective
Yeah.
in the world. That's what I want to know.
Well, and then just in the Arkham games, you know, since everything's pretty much canon in the DC universe, no one has said, "Oh no, this isn't," that I am aware of. I'm sure someone out there is gonna call me out on that. But in Arkham Asylum, you know, he has some of the gadgets that he uses helps you like see through walls and helps you see how something has played out. Like he's I don't know if he how it works exactly, but basically he's got his gadget that says this is how everything worked, and this person walked here, and this person was shot here, and this person was thrown
And-
across the room here.
And those type of gadgets I would be completely okay with. But you can't tell me that Batman is a master strategist, a master tactician, a master detective, not only be a myth in the night where some criminals know he exists, some criminals don't, but he spends most of his time driving around in a souped up tank,
yeah, a
blowing stuff up.
ginormous vehicle.
You're not hiding from anyone.
Yeah.
So that's I would be okay with saying a more compact, detective focused story
Yeah, I'm on board with
than
that.
just some big over the top action set pieces, things like that.
A lot of hallway fights is all I want.
More, take a cue from Netflix. Hallway fights is where you want to go. So also in DC news, a new trailer for the Blu-ray release of Suicide Squad, the extended cut, was dropped this weekend with new footage of the Jokers that was not seen in theaters. Tell me, why can't WBDC get it right the first time around? And do these extended versions, since you talked about canon, do
Right.
these extended versions count as canon to the movie you saw in the theaters?
So why can't they get it right the first time? I think that comes down to who your editors are and your executive producers. Just on a film standpoint in general, the people that make the decisions are your executive producers and your editors. I think that maybe they lose their vision in the middle of their job. They're trying so hard to make an action film and forgetting the story. And when in forgetting the story, they leave out
So,
large portions.
do you think that at Warner Brothers or DC, that it is more of the money men getting in the way?
Yeah, especially if it's
Of the storyteller, so to say?
Definitely. That would be what the executive producers would be. They'd be the money men. They say, you know, I put up this much money for this film, and I want this part in for sure. When we paid for this explosion, they better put it in. but then we lose out on some smaller story portions that may or may not have been filmed to our knowledge when we see it in the theater. We're not sure. Then we get these extended cuts, and people come back and say, "Oh, it's so much better now because we know we can sit in our house for 3 hours and watch a film." But
And I'll be the first to tell you, the extended cut of Batman versus Superman was a better movie. It made more sense. But for the fan out there that's not going to go and buy the DVD
yeah,
or buy the extended version of the Blu-ray, they don't get that back filler. And if they saw it in the theater and they're going, "Man, this movie's bad. It's not any good." They're not going to go out and buy
right.
they're not going to go out and buy the extended version.
And not
So
everyone lives in Springfield, Missouri, where we still have video rental stores, not Redbox. We have actual stores where you go in and rent videos. But so not everyone has that, so they'd have to purchase this to even find out what they missed out on in the theater.
so can you count that also as canon? Is that an actual part of the story? Because I consider what I saw in the theater to be an actual part of the story. We spoke earlier off of the mic, and I talked to you
Yeah.
about I Am Legend, starring Will Smith. How there are different director's cuts where the Doctor actually survives. If is that canon, or because in the theater, the theatrical version, he dies.
He dies, right, at the explosions.
So which one? If you can't change those stories, you can't change this story. So all I can base it off of is what I saw in the theaters. And for Suicide Squad, which I felt was a better movie, I know that Jared Leto came out and said that he wasn't happy about the amount of screen time he got. I just don't think that you're gonna get a pass from me on the extended cuts of the Blu-ray.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna try to watch the extended cut, but the story that I know is the one I saw in theater, and that's the one I'm probably gonna build off my. If they make a Suicide Squad 2, that's where I'm gonna get my story from, because who knows if I'm ever gonna get around to watching that extended cut, and that's what they should really focus on when they're making these films. Is are people really gonna get around to watching those extended cuts? Because people are busy, we have lives. As much as our lives really kind of revolve around these films that are coming out, we all get excited about watching them. We make time set aside to watch it in the theater, but then after we've already left the theater, I go home and I have my life. I don't have time to watch your extended cut, man.
As much as I love DC, I've said it on previous shows. Superman, huge fan. Marvel doesn't have to do this. They put
Right.
out the right movie the first time.
Exactly.
They don't have to put out these extended versions or the director's cut. They get it right the first time, and then they don't have to go back and try to draw more interest in a bad product by saying, "Oh, we've got more footage." Well, why didn't you put the right footage in the first time around?
Right, and maybe DC and Warner Brothers need to do more test screenings possibly with these films before they bring them out. Have people who are not part of the crew watch these films and see if they even make sense. Like Batman vs Superman, and watching that film in the theaters is very hard to understand what was happening for the majority of the film.
And I do think they made the right choice in reeling in Zack Snyder, not giving him complete control over the universe,
Mm-hmm.
putting Jeff Johns in control to where they have a point man, kind of like over at Marvel, a guy who can oversee all the decisions. It's not a money man, but
Right.
a story guy who's worked in the field before with comics, in the novels, different things like that, where he can say, that's just not who this character is. Maybe we should think about rewriting him or going in a different direction. I think that they're steering the ship in a better direction, but stuff like this, time after time after time, if you can't get it right the first time around, I'm not going to give you a pass, like I said before, because you put out an extended cut that explained a movie you should have explained in theaters.
Right.
All right. So for the second week in a row, Boo, A Madea Halloween, is the number one movie at the domestic box office, beating out the Tom Cruise star Jack Reacher, Never Go Back, last week, and the Tom Hanks film Inferno, which is a part of his Da Vinci Code trilogy. Are these stars losing their shine, or is Madea just that popular?
Well, I didn't really watch Angels and Demons or Da Vinci Code, so I don't really care about Inferno. So that's probably where the Tom Hanks film falls for me. And I, I like Tom Cruise in Mission
Now, let me say,
Impossible, but
the first Jack Reacher movie I saw on Netflix, and
right.
I actually enjoyed it. So now I haven't jumped out to go see this one, but I will say that movie was a pretty decent movie.
Okay, well, I haven't seen it yet, so maybe I should do that. Is it still on Netflix?
I believe so.
All right, well, I'm gonna use my mom's account and watch it then.
Or Netflix could sponsor the show and just give us a free account.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But I think there's a correlation with the economy and the kind of films that come out. So when the economy is bad or it's a more weaker economy, more comedies do well, and when it's better, more dramas and thrillers do well. And I'm not saying that the economy is really weak right now, but I feel like we're still coming out of that time when a lot of people were having a lot of troubles economically speaking.
But they're still kind of leery.
Yeah, I mean, people are still hesitant to invest in anything, and so a comedy is an easier investment of your time than an action film because you just go in and you laughed and you left and everything is good. Sometimes action films you have to think about later on, and it's a time investment, I guess, is where it comes down to.
But are those stars like Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks? Are they losing their shine?
Their pull.
Is their star power going down?
Yeah, because think about Tom Cruise. We have a lot of the Scientology stuff that everyone's freaking out about, and have his relationship with Katie Holmes. And I don't really follow tabloids very much, so I don't know if they're together or not, how that's going. But I feel like he's received enough bad press that he doesn't have the same pull anymore. And Tom Hanks hasn't received that bad press, but I do feel like he has been making films for quite a long time, and people just don't care as much, I guess. I mean, especially if you didn't read the trilogy for the Da Vinci Code, then watching all the films may or may not have any appeal to you. But Boo is just a silly time, and we all know exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be fart jokes, there's going to be cross-dressing, and it's going to be hilarious.
And that's what's going to draw people in.
Yeah.
Well, with Tom Cruise, it may be, for me, it may be that just with all the antics, like you said before, people don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
Those stars of the late 90s, early 2000s, they're not as a guaranteed draw as they used to be. Tom Cruise had a movie called Edge of Tomorrow. Not a lot of people. Actually, I loved it.
Really, I really did not like that.
I really enjoyed Edge of Tomorrow, and I think people didn't go see it because of Tom. They just didn't. They weren't interested in it. They're making a sequel. Doug Liman is back to direct. I'm all in on going to see it, but not because of Tom, because I enjoyed
because of the story.
The first one. I loved it. It's also on Netflix, or used to be on Netflix. That's one we'll have to talk about that we both disagree on. I liked it a lot, and I'd be in for a sequel. But I just think that people don't really care. You can't give us the name of a star and say go see this movie anymore. Some stars do still have a little bit of that pull. I think Will Smith is still there. He's hanging on. He's hanging on a little bit. He really needs a big hit again.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock is definitely still there though. If Sandra Bullock's in a film, it's gonna do well. And because I think this is why.
Mm-hmm.
What was the last film that you remember Sandra Bullock doing?
The last film that I remember Sandra Bullock doing is probably The Blind Side.
Yeah, The Blind Side, and then the one before that.
I have no clue, but she's done something since then.
No, but it's been she does like gaps. She does like big gaps, whereas Tom Cruise did Oblivion and Edge of Tomorrow within like a 3-year period. Then we got Edge of Tomorrow just came out a year and a half ago, maybe? Is it 2 years? 2 years ago. Yeah. And now we have the second Jack Reacher film. There's been 2 Jack Reacher films since then, so he's trying to work like he's still 27. I don't know how old he is.
He's in his 50s.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. He's getting older and he's trying to work like he's super young still. Sandra Bullock has accepted that she's getting older and just giving us a breathing room. maybe I just think Sandra Bullock is hot. I don't know, but what it is.
That we can agree on. That we can both agree on. I just think that those stars are dying out, and we watch movies differently.
Yeah.
We want the story, not the actor, which is why Marvel, when they're casting, they're not trying to find the biggest actor out there to fill that role. Um, Benedict Cumberbatch is a star. And
Cumberbatch.
Benedict, if you're out there, please let us know how to pronounce your last
Isn't
name.
it Cumberbatch?
It's Cumberbatch, something. Cumber smoothie, something.
Cumber smoothie. Cucumber smoothie.
Benedict, if you're out there listening, which we know you are.
Yeah, definitely, because we're going to tag you in this. And so you always search your name to see every week what's new,
Let us know how to pronounce your name down in the comments. But I think that with even DC, besides Ben Affleck, you go out and you tell a story, not give us the name of that actor. And doing it that way, A, you don't have to pay somebody as much the first time around. And B, you get to spend more money creating this universe or this world and developing these characters. As far as Madea goes, I think this is just, she's got just like with the comic book movies, she's got a certain following of people who are going to see her no matter what.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing about those trailers that made me say, you know what? That looks funny. I want to check this out.
Can I just add real fast? I did not even know that there was a new Madea movie coming out.
I think I found out last week before it was released. So it's just one of those things where she's got a certain following that are going to go see her no matter what. Just kind of like the same the movies that we see. And this just shows you that Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, some of these other, older aging stars don't have the same pull that they used to
once
have. Yeah. A Tom Cruise action movie coming out in October.
Yeah, it shouldn't be in July.
Yeah, exactly. That should tell you, that should say enough right there.
It's like the Friday night sitcoms on CBS. Don't watch them.
All right.
Wait, real fast, speaking of CBS sitcoms, I know we didn't talk about this before the show, but did you hear about the show The Great Indoors?
I've seen the trailers for it. I've seen the advertising for it, but I'm not sure whether or not I'm in on it.
Just don't. I don't know, man. I watched the first episode and I really wanted to like it because I like Joel McHale.
And did it try to give you that Community feel, but didn't pull it off very well?
It tried to be Community with a
That's
freaking
what I
laugh,
thought.
and then the
That's what I
laugh
thought.
track, man. Like, I know how to laugh. Don't tell me when to laugh. Okay, I'm done.
All right. So, if you didn't pick that up, we're out on The Great Indoors.
Yeah.
All right. So since today is Halloween, we figured last week we'd throw out a Halloween question. Our question of the week from last week was, what is your favorite scary movie? We got a lot of great answers from our Twitter and Facebook pages at Panel of Amateurs. We'll discuss our favorite answers, but we invite you to also keep the conversation going down in the comments below. Continue to let us know what your favorite scary movies are, what you dressed up for as Halloween today. What were some of your favorite costumes that you saw out there? You can also tweet us those pictures to our Twitter page and our Facebook page, once again, at Panel of Amateurs. So, Peter, what did we get on our list this week?
Well, the first answer that we got was nobody likes horror movies, guys. So I guess that just says it all. And that's it for the segment then, huh?
Oh, that was quick.
That was nice. No, that was from Megan, who then said that she liked the movie Practical Magic, I guess, which isn't a scary film at all. So we're just going to let her have that moment. And that moment was yours. And
Megan, that's your moment in the sun.
Congrats. Next we have from Jedediah. He said Trick or Treat. I did not see that film. I'm not familiar with it.
I don't have a whole lot of back history. I don't have a whole lot of history on that film. I do remember it, but I remember the name, but I can't say that I remember much about the film. But hey, if Jedediah liked it.
Yeah. From Raymond, we got House of a Thousand Corpses, which is a film about 1,000 corpses in a house. I think they're having a party. They're playing Monster Mash most of the film. I think that's how the
Rob
movie goes.
Zombie would be really pissed at your description of his horror film.
Yeah. Gosh, I could just imagine like 1,000 dead bodies dancing,
Just having a party.
and it's like he did the mash, he did the monster mash. Okay, I'm done with that.
Peter started his Halloween party early.
Yeah, you make it sound like I'm an alcoholic or something, but I don't drink at all. I'm just partying
But
because it's Halloween.
Wouldn't an alcoholic tell you they don't drink?
I don't know. How would that?
You're right. You would know.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Because if you were an alcoholic, you wouldn't admit it. What's next on the
What?
list, Peter?
We have Thomas said, gotta go with Jason, specifically Friday the 13th parts 4 and 7. They're cheesy, but they're just so classic, is what he said.
Are they classic because they're cheesy? Because were those movies,
That's the point of the
Good.
Jason films, right?
well,
It's-
back when they were originally released, were those good films?
I think I was like 6 when they came out.
Well,
so
obviously,
I'm not sure.
I mean, obviously, what I'm saying is, so one of my favorite, and it wasn't actually a movie, it was a TV miniseries based on the Stephen King novel It by the same name, and it followed a group of friends who were tormented by a demon who takes the form of a clown from their childhood to adulthood. And I'm sure if I go back and watch it now, it'd be ridiculous. But as a child, I was terrified. So I'm just wondering
Oh, okay. That's what you're asking.
if those movies were, if they were, when we watch them now, we're like, what is this? Or it's more of a comedy than anything else.
Right.
When people were growing up, the teenagers in 1984 or whatnot, was that something were they terrified of these movies?
Well, I think that you can ask the children that were born in 1985 how scary these films were because their mothers and fathers held each other so close during them.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yes.
We should have a large
a lot
section
of influx of
babies in around the mid 80s when all
Yeah.
these 80s slasher films were coming out.
exactly, and usually they were born in like August.
Or
Is that 9 months
summer
after
months.
October?
June.
June? Yeah, I'm not good with math sometimes. Next we have from Leanne, we have Sixth Sense, which
Is that a horror film though?
that is my level of horror film.
Gotcha.
I'm not really on the horror film spectrum, but you know, I don't like dead body ghosts hanging in my school hallway anyways. So watching that in The Sixth Sense, it kind of got me. I think it came out when I was a junior in high school, so walking through the high school, I would imagine. That's the thing about horror films for me is that I think about them too much later on.
Yeah.
And
Trouble.
so-
All right. So are you one of those people where if you watch a horror film or a horror TV show like American Horror Story or The Walking Dead, do you then have to watch something funnier or like a comedy after just to kind of put your
Yeah.
mind at ease?
Yeah, we watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine most every week after watching The Walking
So
Dead.
that's kind of your ritual. You watch
Yeah.
that afterwards.
And it's really sad because the next morning I'll get up to go to work and I'll open the garage door and shine my flashlight in there because there's no light. Make sure there's no walker that's gonna bite my hand as I open
Make
the
sure
garage
the
door.
zombie apocalypse
It's-
didn't jump off.
Yeah,
while you were
I don't know
sleeping.
when it happened. It happened while Rick was asleep. I mean, he was in a coma, whatever. But yeah, for me, I'm not a huge horror fan. But last we have Unborn, which is another film about demons, I'm assuming.
Demons are popular. Demons get me all the time. That's one of those ones where, like you said, I've got to then go back and watch, a Kevin Hart comedy or something like that to kind of just slow my mind down a little.
Yeah.
bit. That's all it is. I'm not scared. I'm a
Uh,
grown man. I'm not scared. I just
I'm-
need to put my mind at rest.
No, I'm scared, man. I'm scared.
So, Cinema Blend released an article on their website of the 30 best horror films of all time. We'll just go down the list of some of the highlights. We won't list them all out. You're more than welcome to go to cinemablend.com, search that article, read it there. It's a really interesting list. Some of the films on there I didn't think are horror films, kind of like The Sixth Sense, but obviously you do, and there were some
Right.
films on here that he felt like were horror films that I didn't. The first one is Friday the 13th, the original Friday the 13th, where Jason is not the murderer. He's more of a background character that you really never see until the end. His mother is the murderer in that first movie. And actually,
Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it.
spoiler alert if you haven't seen any of these movies.
Also, it's from 1980, so you need to catch up.
Like, how long does a spoiler last?
I think it's like 6 months. Let's be real here.
Well, what about TV? A week. If you haven't seen the
Yeah,
episode in a week, you're free. It's fair game.
yeah. If it airs on Sunday and we're talking a week later Monday, so like today, if we're talking about episode 1 of season 7, Walking Dead, it's not a spoiler anymore because someone on Facebook already told you. Don't worry.
Gotcha. So for movies, we're saying 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
Okay. So spoiler alert, even though this one has been out since 1984, I believe, somewhere in the 80s, it follows Jason's mother, who is trying to get revenge for the death of her son, or for the teens in that camp wanting to sleep with each other rather than watch the children who are attending the camp. The camp counselors is who she's after. I think 30 is a good spot for that. I think it was much more of a horror movie and it was less campy to me than the following Friday the 13th, that when they decided to bring Jason along as the axe wielding murderer, or as the knife wielding murderer. So another highlight from the 20 to 30 is Shaun of the Dead. More of a comedy,
Definitely
but
a
since
comedy.
it had zombies in it, we're considering it a horror film. It was a really good movie.
Yeah, but okay, looking through the list, I don't see. Oh wait, there's Evil Dead. Just kidding. Never mind. Forget that argument. Shaun of the Dead is a great film, though. Let's talk about that. Especially, what Simon Pegg, is that
Yeah.
the actor's name? Yeah, Simon Pegg is his delivery of comedy is spot on. I love everything that he's in.
He's one of the best. Now, this isn't horror, but he is one of the best parts of the new Star Trek series.
Yes, definitely. He was also in Star Wars Episode 7. Did you know that?
I did not.
He is inside the suit of the guy who hands out the rations.
Oh, yes.
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 Yeah. There's a lot of
Crossover. between
crossover.
those two.
Yeah.
So, scrolling on down, one of my favorite horror movies of all time is 28 Days Later. It's kind of you're going to find out that I'm a huge zombie theme fan. So George Romero, who's also further down on the list. But this one is a kind of a different take on the zombie theme, where they're not actually flesh eating. This is called the anger virus, where it just makes them brutally violent to the point where they just want to kill
Just murder
everything
everything.
in sight. It's kind of transmitted through, like zombie viruses are, bites, blood. And this one, if you just digest the blood, or if it gets in a mucous membrane, you can turn. So when you're fighting these, you have to be
seems
really
like
careful.
scientifically based, though.
Yeah, you have to be really careful not to get a splash of blood in your eye, in your mouth, things like that. So that was one I really enjoyed. I own it on Blu-ray. That's one I can recommend to go check out. And that one was ranked at number 24.
Going way further up, I was thinking about the movie Freaks, which I thought was really interesting. They had it on here. There's actually a lot of controversy about this film now. It's from 1932, where they took actual sideshow
And that one was ranked at
performers.
number 13 on the
Right,
list.
number 13. Took actual sideshow performers and created a film based around them. But now people, when they talk about this film, it's not usually in a good light. Usually people are condemning it for its exploitation of these people who, I mean, obviously at the time they were working as a sideshow performers, so how much exploitation is it really if they've already chosen that path? And anyways, it's interesting choice for the list for sure.
And going back to the zombie theme, and I'll just briefly, they do have movies on here like Dawn of the Dead, the George Romero version. I actually enjoyed the Zack Snyder version more. It was remade in I believe, the early 2000s. I enjoyed that version a little bit more, but both were great movies. Also, George Romero making the list again at number 7 for Night of the
number
Living Dead. That gets your zombie fare out of the way if you're looking for zombie movies. Night of the Living Dead, 28 Days Later, and Dawn of the Dead are all made the list of the top 30.
So should we tell them number one? Yeah. Okay, so number one on this list was The Shining. That's a great film, and I don't ever think of it as a horror film. I think of it as like a psychological thriller, or it's just a suspense film almost. Maybe because I keep forgetting that like the hotel is a demon and it's possessed. Jack Nicholson's character. That's kind of like the story overall. But watching that film, I never really thought of it as a horror film.
What surprises me, not about The Shining, because I think The Shining is a really great film,
Yeah,
is that there aren't more Stephen King
right.
based films.
There's no Cujo. It's not on here. I mean, and it's not a film. It's a TV miniseries.
Which they are remaking into a film. It won't have the
Right.
same. Maybe with if the clown epidemic now doesn't die down, it'll hold the same weight. But The Shining, I could agree with that. I, I'm debating in my mind on whether or not I consider it a horror film, but it's a scary movie.
Yeah,
we'll put
it
it that way.
definitely is frightening. If you put yourself in the place of, when you watch a film, a lot of times you try to put yourself in the story and become immersed in it.
Mhm.
And if you put yourself in this story, it is not a happy place to be. That is for sure. Now I have seen a re-edit of the trailer where it looks like a family-friendly film, and it is fantastic. But
Can you find that on YouTube?
oh yeah, it's definitely on YouTube. Look up. I think it's The Shining Happy trailer. If you look that up, you'll be able to find it. But an interesting thing about The Shining is Stanley Kubrick's directing style towards Shelley Duvall's character. The scene where they're in the bathroom. Is it a bathroom when Jack Nicholson cuts through the door and says, "Here's Johnny"?
That was a bedroom.
Is it maybe a bedroom where they're in that scene? Kubrick decided that she wasn't believable enough, and he made her, I believe, retake it 148 times, and each time like yelling at her even more and like degrading her to create this person who had been broken down. And
Sounds like some of our takes.
yeah, what?
Peter, stop yelling at me.
I said yes to that, like I agreed with it. I was like, yeah. Wait, what? But it's interesting that I don't know if I would say he believed in the story so much that he would do that, or if he just thought that Shelley wasn't a good enough actress to do it. But it's an interesting thing. There's a lot of backstory or behind the scenes stories that you can find about The Shining online that are all true.
Yeah. Going taking the whole account of the whole list, there are some films. Poltergeist, the original Poltergeist. There are a lot of films that aren't on here that I feel like should be, and there are also some films on here that I don't really feel like are horror movies. Take for instance their number 3 pick, Jaws. I don't really, when I think of horror movies, I don't think of Jaws.
Hmm.
Now, for you Jaws fans out there, don't kill me and say, oh, well, Jaws was this. What I'm saying is I take Jaws of more of a thriller, more so than a horror film.
Right. Well, it's the same with like their number 8 pick, Psycho. Psycho is definitely a thriller, and I wouldn't consider it a horror film. And maybe this is because the genre of horror in in our generation has been based more in like paranormal activity films, a Blair Witch
Mhm.
Project, things that are more like demon magic, boogeyman type based films, and we think of these other ones as thrillers more now. And so I guess that's just our perception of film genre being evolved over time, because some of these films are from like the 1931, 1960 for Psycho. Uh, there are some older films on here, like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is a 1920s silent film. It's a German-made film, but I've never seen it. I'm just saying there's old films on here. That's my point of this.
Well, I mean,
Right.
is it Silence of the Lambs is on here at number
Mhm.
9. That's not really. It's not really a horror film to me. A psychological thriller, yes.
Yeah,
Horror film,
not
no.
so much.
And I guess that made me think of what classifies as a horror film. These scary movie franchise, those aren't horror films.
Yeah,
They're comedies that deal with certain character, what you might consider horror film characters. Slasher films, I would say that they're scary movies. They're supposed to be horror films. And we do have Scream on there, which was kind of the horror movie franchise
Yeah.
of our generation. Um, but there are just some on here. Alien is on there at number 5, I believe. No, number 4. Alien is on here at number 4.
Which is the suspense action filler.
A sci-fi action
Yeah.
suspense thriller. It fits a bunch of different genres, but horror is not one that I would put it with.
Well, according to Wikipedia, because that's the ultimate source for everything, horror is a film genre seeking to elicit a negative emotional reaction from viewers by playing on audiences' primal fears. So, if you have a fear that you'll never get married, You've Got Mail could be a horror film.
I was gonna say, then you could technically throw anything in there. If you have a fear of being poor, a poor single father, then Pursuit of Happiness could be a horror film.
If you have a fear of balloons, the French film The Red Balloon could be frightening. It could be the craziest horror film of your life.
I guess if that is the definition of a horror film according to Wikipedia, then any of these films fit. But to me, there are certain things that I think of when you say, hey, you want to watch a scary movie? Or, hey, you want to watch a horror film,
right?
So to speak. Maybe you can even, for scary movie, you might say, okay, Jaws is a scary movie. But the title of this article is the 30 best horror films of all time.
Well, based off that definition as well, The Chronicles of Riddick is a horror film because, I had to stay in the light.
Yeah.
And people are afraid of the dark. That's a primal fear.
So did you watch any horror films this weekend? AMC has their Fear Fest. A couple of other stations throw out a lot of older horror movies. Did you catch anything this week?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I caught a few. Lights Out is one I caught. It tells the story of a mother whose daughter has moved away, who still has a young son, and she is being haunted by the ghost of her former friend from a psych ward that had a rare disease where she was sensitive to light. And now her ghost, her apparition, is the same. And
sensitive to light?
Sensitive to light. So when you turn on the lights, it fries the daylights out of this. See what I did there? Fries the daylights out of her.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Come on, Peters.
That was horrible. Yeah. That was worse than my Impact joke last week.
No, it wasn't, Peter. You need to listen to that joke again. So, basically, the daughter comes back because she's coming back to save her brother, and this apparition doesn't want anyone to interfere with her relationship with the mother. So she's killed off 2 husbands at this point and is now going after the children. I did think while watching the movie, where was she at when they was making these kids? Because you didn't have a problem watching. But then, after it was all said and done, it was time for everybody to go away. It was okay. I would say, I would say catch it on Netflix if you get the opportunity. During Halloween, I wouldn't go seek it out. The other movie that I saw this weekend was Poltergeist, which is the remake. The remade version that came out in 2015. It's just, I think that sometimes with, especially movies these days, they write out a script and they go, I'm not sure how to end it. Just do this.
Just do it, yeah. Just
do this. And whatever they come up with on the spot. And I felt a lot like that. They play up the Poltergeist, and they didn't really do a whole lot of practical effects or effects where, there's a mystery as to what's going on, why these things are happening. You see the apparitions, probably if you counted their total screen time, 20 minutes, maybe. So you don't, basically there's this whole other world, this dimension where the one kid gets trapped in, and you never really spend much time figuring out what that's all about. They want to be led to the light. I didn't think it did the original any justice. But again, it wasn't horrible. Halloween comes around again next year. I tell you to catch it on Netflix or on video. just to keep you busy.
Well, one thing that we did talk about at the beginning of what we were going to talk about today is just childhood Halloween costumes that we had, maybe some of our favorites, since it is Halloween. And I mean, this year I'm dressing up as a web so that my daughter can be a spider and I can carry her around, and she can be in her spider web. Terry, are you dressing up this year at all?
No, I'm
See, that's the problem.
absolutely not.
We got older and now our costumes are not awesome. But when we were kids, that's when we had the fun stuff.
See, I feel like my costumes got better as a teenager
Really?
than they did when I was a child.
What were your teenager costumes like?
Well, I think for me, as a teenager, it became the fact that I didn't have to buy what's on the shelf anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I could be more creative about my costume. You know, all the stuff that you see parents doing now. Well, at least my parents weren't. There's a ninja costume, or there's a Power Ranger costume.
Which
You
is
got two
essentially a
choices.
ninja costume.
You have two choices. Which one are you going to be? So we didn't. I got a costume. I was just happy to do that.
Yeah.
But I got to put more thought into my own costume as a teenager than I did as a child. So those are the costumes I remember the most.
See, when I was a teenager, my costume was usually like bloody skateboarder because I rode a skateboard a lot and I could just put some
That didn't
blood
make
on
it
me.
not awesome.
No, it was still awesome, but my mom was pretty handy when it came to like sewing. So when I was growing up, I had costumes like Aladdin and Peter Pan that my mom had made for me. And I remember my Peter Pan costume. I think it was made out of felt. Like the entire thing was felt, and I had like a belt, and it was. I'm gonna be honest, it was too big. I remember it being like really large, but it was cool because
Did
I
she
was
sew
Peter
in the
Pan.
muscles and the padding and all that as
No,
well?
no, none of that stuff. Which is kind of funny because when I was Aladdin, I had a vest. It was just a purple vest and the white pants. And I saw another kid that was Aladdin, and he had like muscle like stuff on it. And I was just wearing a vest with no shirt underneath it. Just, hey guys, I'm a kind of a tubby kid. Whatever, it's cool.
Your mom set you up for failure on that one.
Yeah, but my mom did a lot of awesome stuff too. She tried to make a Highlander costume for my brother, where she got a wig and tried to dye it a different color. I remember it, and it did not turn
Like
out
the
well.
cut your head off version of Highlander.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. How
Yeah.
old was your brother?
Oh, we watched Highlander a lot when I was a kid. We should talk about that sometime, man.
There's another one they're supposed to be bringing back.
Yeah, we watched Highlander and Hercules a lot. The Kevin Sorbo
Mhm.
Hercules. That was great. Oh, I think I was Hercules one time as well. Another vest with no shirt costume. I did not like to wear shirts when I was a kid, apparently.
Sounds like a lot of your costume involved a shirtless Peter. If your mom is out there listening, and we know she is, our viewers would love to see the pictures from Peter's childhood costumes.
Luckily,
Post
there was a
them
giant
everywhere.
fire. Everything was lost in a fire. Or not. I don't know.
Mrs. Bateman, there's a picture out there, and you can find it. And we need to see it. The people need to see it.
I can't wait for this thing to surface. It's going to be great.
So the costumes that I remember the most, I remember in high school one time I had this suit that I tattered up. It was an old used suit, so if anybody's thinking that I just had a suit and I was like, hey, I'm gonna rip this up. It was a tattered suit. I put blood on it. I got some zombie makeup, and this is before zombies were really, really popular like they are now. Kind of like vampires were popular for a moment there. I had this gray, greenish makeup that I put all over my face and grayed out my hair, rubbed the suit around in dirt and fake blood. And I went for it. That was one of my favorites. But like I said, I was a teenager at that point. I remember a costume where I went all out. I was a Vulcan from Star Trek.
Nice.
I researched to make sure that there were black Vulcans because I didn't want to do it if there were no black Vulcans. I bought ears, and the ears only came in Caucasian, and I got some costume makeup and painted them brown, glued them. I even got prosthetic glue, glued them on. I had that stuff on my face for a week after I peeled them off. I went out. I shaved my eyebrows. Yes, I
What?
shaved my eyebrows.
Wow, that is dedication.
I was dedicated. Peter, when
I
I'm in
mean,
character,
okay, one
I'm
time,
dedicating myself to this character.
okay, one time in high school, there was a cross-dressing pageant that I was a part of. We can talk about that another time. Yeah. Um, but I shaved my entire body for it, which makes no sense because at no point was I in like a swimsuit where I needed to shave my whole body for it.
You
Uh,
just felt like you needed
I just
to,
felt
huh?
like I was supposed to. My friend and I felt like it was a great idea. We should shave our entire bodies. So that was interesting. But yeah,
You
I
can never
under
laugh at my shaving of the eyebrows.
no. The point is,
ever
I
again.
understand your commitment to the costume.
So, and actually, one of my favorite costumes was one I did last year. So I saw this.
Which was awesome.
I saw this video on YouTube for basically making Batman's mech suit from Batman versus Superman out of cardboard and like Tupperware. And I said, well, I don't want to be Batman because
Because you like Superman, I get it. I understand.
yeah, that's exactly why I didn't want to be
Yeah.
Batman. Check back to my Star Trek Vulcan comment and you'll know why. So I decided, I can do that exact same thing as Cyborg from DC Comics. So I cardboard, cut it up, I spray painted it. I thought it was really cool. I built in a light through a reflector in the middle of for a chest piece in the middle that lit up. I had turned one of my arms using cardboard into a blaster that had a light in it that I could shine through a reflector. I mean, I probably spent 2 or 3 weeks just getting this costume right and spray painting and then spray painting again and then putting primer on there. I went all out for it and I thought it turned out.
And then
pretty good.
I walked into work and I said, "Oh, Kick Puncher from Community," and he was like, "What are you even talking about? I'm Cyborg." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a guy."
You were the only one who didn't get it. Everyone else, all the little kids, everyone who saw me in it knew exactly who I was. One of the best parts was I had basically a Phantom of the Opera mask.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That I'd spray painted and made it to look like half my face was metal. I had a reflector in it for the eyepiece where I had a flashlight on the side glued into the inside of it to where I could shine that flashlight and it would light up the reflector. I had to close my eyes every time because it was blinding every time I did it. But hey, when you get in, when I go in, Peter, I go all in.
So when was the last time you went trick-or-treating then?
Admittedly,
Yeah.
I was in high school before I stopped trick-or-treating.
But okay, so like the last time I went was senior year. We didn't go junior year, but senior year, my friends and I thought, let's just do it. Like, who cares? We're 17, 18-year-old kids. Let's do this.
And you were probably like 7 foot tall at the time?
I was 6'1" at the time.
So there's no mistaking you.
No mistaking that I was definitely a grown person. But we all tried to fit into one car. There's a 5-passenger car, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of us. Yes. So we ended up getting pulled over by the police, and there's a whole fiasco. But we went trick-or-treating, and we got some candy. Not much because people thought that we were too old, and they didn't. They pulled their candy away from us.
So growing up, did you, and I was thinking about this, did you go door to door?
Heck
or
yes.
did you do organized trick-or-treating kind of like they do now, where there's trunk or treats and church events and things like that?
I did both. We did the church trunk or treat, and then we went to the mall once or twice in my lifetime, but we mainly went door to door.
See, I don't think we didn't do the door to door stuff until I was old enough to go by myself. Mm-hmm. My aunt worked as a nurse in this huge, or at the time what I felt like was a huge retirement home, and the residents used to come out on Halloween and they'd stand in front of their doors or their facilities, and when I say facilities, I do not mean bathrooms. They stand out there and they'd hand out candy, and we used to get so much candy from just going throughout this entire assisted living facility. One of the best moments from my childhood that I can remember on Halloween was doing that. And then as we got older and wanted to hang out with our friends, we started doing the more door to door. Like I can remember one Halloween where we set out for a goal to get to 100 doors.
Oh my gosh, that's so many.
We were dragging like dragging
Did you?
bags.
Well, yeah. What did you use to hold your candy?
Pillowcases.
Yeah, pillowcases.
We were dragging pillowcases.
That is what you have to use when you have a goal to get a lot of candy. You better bring a pillowcase. None of this pumpkin bucket junk. No.
I would have needed 6 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So we used pillowcases. We would go door to door and try to hit 100. And each Halloween, and I think maybe I may have been a junior when we stopped, but we would go door to door and we would drag these pillowcases with us all around, filling them up with as much candy as we possibly could that we'd never eat. We ended up throwing it away in January because we couldn't do anything with it after.
Yeah, we definitely ate all of our candy like before Christmas.
Chocolate or fruit snacks?
Oh, chocolate.
Fruit flavored. See, I was Reese's peanut butter cups, Snickers, but I had friends that they were like, "No, you can have all my chocolate if you give me half of your Skittles like candy."
Dude, I would give you all of my Skittles and Starburst. And what about Smarties? I hated getting Smarties. I like Smarties. They're not gross, but it's Halloween, man. Don't be jipping me on candy.
And candy corn.
Oh,
you give me candy corn, I'm never coming to your house again.
Never, ever going to your house again.
Candy corn and those little peanut butter flavor things.
Okay,
that
wait,
are
time
wrapped
out.
in
Those are really good.
Now they are. But as a child, I hated them.
Yeah? Oh, I loved them as a kid.
As a child, it's like, what is this? Why are you handing this out? Like, if I need a name brand, a Snickers, a Hershey's, a Starburst, a Skittles, I'll take those any day than whatever that. But candy corn,
I think they're called Mary Janes, which is ironic because of marijuana and such. It's not really ironic though, because that's not the definition of irony.
Did you ever get anything that you like? Did you ever get a baked good? I remember somebody tried to give us cupcakes one year, and we were like, "Yeah, so no."
I think so.
Like they baked these cupcakes themselves and tried to give. Yeah, so no.
I don't remember.
You can keep those.
I think I got like popcorn balls, but I think those were packaged. I don't know. I just remember like being a kid and thinking I had to look at all my candy. There's going to be a needle in it. And there's never been actual report of any of that actually happening. There's one report of some kids that died of poison candy, and it turned out that the dad had poisoned the candy so that he could get the life insurance money.
Well, that is a horrible way to end this Halloween.
I know.
So,
anyways, candy is awesome.
Anyway, candy is awesome. There are two things. There are two things I want to pick on about Halloween before we end the show. So the first thing is, if you leave your home tonight and you leave a bucket of candy on your doorstep, in your hallway, wherever you leave that bucket of candy at, and you put a note on there that says, "Hey, please only take one," you're an idiot. And you deserve to have the entire bucket stolen. We used to race to the house that we saw with a bag of candy sitting there, and no one was out there.
When I was a kid, we put a pumpkin out, and then we stuck lollipops in it so we can go trick-or-treating, and then there'll still be candy. And I did not expect there to be any lollipops when I got back, or the pumpkin. But the pumpkin was still there.
The pumpkin was still there.
I guess we lived in a good neighborhood, even though there were drive-bys in that neighborhood. Different time, different story. But
sorry, America. We took the whole bag.
Yeah.
We took the entire bag. You were the idiot for leaving it out there.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I want to pick on Halloween about is, do you realize how contradictory Halloween is to everything we've ever learned as a child?
Yeah.
As a
don't talk to strangers. Don't take candy from strangers.
For 11 months out of the year, it's don't talk to strangers. Don't take candy from strangers. Don't go to the doors of the houses of people you don't know.
You can't go door to door and sell your fundraising stuff for school. They tell you, like, do not go door to door. Only sell it to your family and friends and yada yada. And then Halloween comes and they're like, every door is game.
Dress up in fancy costumes, pretend to be people you aren't, and just go talk to strangers. Yeah. And now it's popular that, hey, you go to that stranger's trunk and get that car. And if your kid's being shy about it and you're like, hey, your kid's like, no, this doesn't feel right. You're like, you're being rude. Go over to that trunk and take some candy. Like, how contradictory is it to everything? Like, children are probably, this is probably one of the most confusing days of the year. Mom, I don't know. Wait, should I go over to that man who's dressed like a clown and take candy from him? Because yesterday you told me not to.
Yeah.
So that is my beef with Halloween, is that it is so contradictory. You're confusing these children, and we need to find a better way of doing things. Parents should just buy their kids bags of candy and just dump it on them at home.
It's funny that you say that because I just posted on my Facebook 2 days ago a video that says that we should do the exact opposite and continue to go door to door because it builds neighborly connections. But that's fun.
Unless you live in Nebraska.
Unless you live in Nebraska. Well, that guy's in jail now, so we're good.
The people that he was murdering weren't in jail.
Well, yeah, no, they're dead.
Now they're dead,
Yeah,
but they weren't when he started murdering them.
Anyway.
All right. So down in the comments, let us know what you did for Halloween. Post pictures to our Facebook, Twitter. Show us all the wonderful costumes that you saw out there. You know, if you're going to send your kids to the trunk of a stranger's car to get candy, at least let them know this is the only day of the week, the day of the year that this works.
Only on Mondays can you do this.
Only on the 31st of October is this game. Never do it any other time. But have a great Halloween. Have fun. Stay safe. Eat lots of candy till your stomach hurts.
All right, so we got our question of the next week coming up. So Doctor Strange is coming out on November 4th, 5th, whatever this coming Friday is. We know it's a new kind of superpower altering reality, but there are all kinds of superpowers out there. So our question for everyone out there is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
You only get to choose one.
Yeah, so
if
no
you say
Supermans.
Flying, if you say flying, then you can't choose super strength.
Exactly. And if you have X-ray vision, then you can't have all restraining orders lifted from you, So
doesn't work that way.
One power.
What's your favorite what superpower, if you could choose one, would you like the most? And next week we'll be discussing more of the latest news, the question of the week from this week, our thoughts on the Marvel film Doctor Strange. Don't forget our gift card giveaway is still continuing. Also, comment below on today's episode, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Panel of Amateurs, and our Facebook and Twitter at Panel of Amateurs. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Terry.
And I'm Peter.
We'll see you next week.